Good afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council Cablecast public hearing on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. We are joined so far with Councilwoman Erica Strasburger, Councilman Bobby Wilson, Councilman Daniel Lavelle, Councilman Deborah Gross, Councilwoman Deborah Gross, and Councilman Anthony Coghill. We're going to ask, as always, that our city clerk would start us off by reading the purpose of this Cablecast public hearing.
Bill 1372, petition from the residents of the city requesting a public hearing before City Council relative to the crisis of forced mass displacement of Black Pittsburghers and the reasons for this displacement. The petition is valid in accordance with the Home Rule Charter.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the beginning of our meeting, and we ask that Randall Taylor will start first, followed by Jackie Smith. Randall, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Councilman. Can you see me?
Thank you very much. Yes, everybody will be given 3 minutes, but I warn you, after 3 minutes, your feed will automatically cut off. So please start off with your name and neighborhood, and 3 minutes are yours.
My name is Randall Taylor of Homewood, soon to be back in East Liberty. And I want to thank council for this hearing. And first of all, let me do something I used to do back in the day, was to thank Lawrence Gumberg for opening my eyes and opening the city's eyes to the issue of gentrification and displacement and housing injustice in this city. Had it not been for him, I would never have been able to learn about the city's housing policies, giving massive amounts of public dollars and subsidies and tax breaks and in public land to developers to force our people to rent in perpetuity. So again, I want to talk about, again, the issue of displacement. The number of 7,000 between 2014 and 2018 is a disgraceful number for this city. We believe it is the policy of the city of Pittsburgh to drive African Americans from this city. The best example of that is the land bank is a perfect example where the city acquires. The city is the largest slum landlord in the Homewood area. They have sat on these properties for seven years, and it's a shame what they've done to homeowners who are trying to maintain their home, maybe increase their property values, but they have the misfortune of sitting next to one of the city-owned slum properties. So one thing we want to talk about is, again, let's grow the city. Let's bring back people who want to live in this city. And those are people who were forced from here. We know they were forced because they moved to the eastern suburbs of the city, which means they didn't leave for economic opportunity. They left because they could no longer afford to live in the city. Final minute, I just wanted to say that the solution on the table, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity, the COVID relief dollars. We are going to make a demand of $200 million. That will be used hopefully strictly for housing and to begin to start in a place like Homewood. That will be of a benefit to the taxpayers of the city. Well, now we have a community that has not received, that is not giving tax revenue to the city. Once we bring that back online, it will pay for itself over the years. And so we're also saying on City Council that we do not want the mayor to appoint another one of his task forces. We do not want this Councilman Burgess to appoint another one of his task forces. It must be a community-driven process to determine how that $200 million will be spent. Let's make no doubt about it that the use of the COVID relief dollars in the city of Pittsburgh should prioritize housing and to bring our people back. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Jackie Smith, followed by Roxanne Scott. Jackie.
Hello, and thank you to the members of council for being here today and for giving us this space. My name is Jackie Smith, and I live in the Park Place neighborhood. I'm speaking today as a resident, but also a teacher and scholar at the University of Pittsburgh and a human rights advocate in the city, working with many folks here today. And I'm very concerned about the future of my neighborhood and of my students, and that's part of my motivation here. But I think it's important to understand this conversation that we're having here in Pittsburgh as part of a global movement for the right to the city. And what we're seeing in Pittsburgh is a larger process of systemic displacement of people of color, low-income residents of cities around the world. And there's a movement to end systemic racism and really address housing as a human right and claim our right to the city. And we're asking the city council to really take this seriously and to understand what we're doing as a part of a global process to remedy historic patterns of systemic racism and displacement that we're calling gentrification, but that's part of a very long process that's global and becoming very urgent for us to address. And it's a result of the fact that city leaders have for too long served the needs of developers and investors and tried to promote growth with the idea that it would trickle down and benefit everybody. But that doesn't happen. It hasn't happened, and research shows that it isn't designed to happen. Cities need to be designed for the people that live here, and we need to center policymaking around people's needs and around human rights. So human right to housing has to be a top priority for the leaders in our city. And the pandemic is really a wake-up call that we really need to change how we think about policy and development. We need a new paradigm that centers people and not money and investment and growth. We need to think about the future generations. What's going to happen in 10 years? What's this city going to look like based on the policies we make today? So centering people's needs and treating housing as one of a system of human rights. It's a basic right, one of the top priorities we have to make. It's not a privilege reserved to those who can pay. And we need to think about the rights that need to go with it. Decent work at a housing wage, education, and a healthy environment, and strong communities, which good housing policies help protect and promote strong communities that can protect us and help strengthen our immune systems against diseases like COVID-19. And not only is it the right thing to do, this is our international legal obligations. Elected officials are supposed to be helping implement international human rights laws, and the right to housing is well established.
Thank you very much. Roxanne Scott, followed by Timothy Stevens. Roxanne. Roxanne, are you with us? Roxanne Scott.
Hi,
No.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. My name is Roxanne Scott. I currently live in McKeesport, but I lived all over the city as I was born and raised here and lived and worked here my entire life. So forgive my bluntness, but the question is not why Black folks are leaving Pittsburgh. The question really is, why didn't it happen sooner, and how bad is it going to get? You know, for me, my building blocks for my American dream are healthcare, education, employment, housing, and justice. And Pittsburgh fails Black women and their families terribly on employment and housing. These failures force our families into bad neighborhoods with bad schools. It limits our employment options. It endangers our health, and they destroy our credit and exhaust our savings, and they unhouse our families. I know that this council recently declared racism as a public health issue, and that's great. But the question is, who's going to do something about that, and what's going to be done? So what I want to make sure we point out is that, particularly in my situation, employment and housing are a big problem. We are not protected from racist employers like CVS Aetna in this area. CVS Aetna is a significant employer in this area, but we should all be familiar by now with CVS Aetna's reputation for discrimination. And what I assume to be true, I'm not an activist, so somebody can correct me, but what I assume to be true is that CVS Aetna, like some other companies, are double dipping in Pittsburgh. They're getting tax credits, and they're also using the welfare system, which you all don't want us to be on, to cover up their discrimination and to support it. So I would hope that this committee, and it would have been nice if the mayor or the governor or the lieutenant governor, who all like our votes, would have done something about it, but I know for a fact that that has not been done yet. Hold these companies who discriminate against Black women accountable. Stop them from double dipping out of Pittsburgh. The other thing that is a problem is housing. I know the mayor is talking about tax assessments and things like that. The gateway to owning a home is renting. And what happens here, and I know we all know this too, the automatic evictions are a problem. The automatic evictions keep us from finding work because those are public records that show up on background checks. The automatic evictions keep us from finding new housing when we are evicted. I have been evicted 3 times in this city. From Perry Hilltop, a woman named Jill Vitaloon evicted me because I would not help her evict a man named Matt Cavanaugh. I went with a manila folder full of information and 2 witnesses. Judge Ravensall said point blank when I asked, why am I being evicted if she didn't prove her case? He said point blank, it's her house and she wants you out.
Thank you very much. For the record, we're joined by President Teresa Kell Smith, Councilman Bruce Krause, and Councilman Corey O'Connor. Timothy Stevens, followed by Mel Packer. Stevens.
How's everybody?
Fine.
I'm a little frustrated because I finished a statement to send to all of you and it disappeared from the computer. So you know how that is. So I will take the time to rewrite a statement for you that you'll receive. But I wanted to, first of all, give acknowledgement to Randall Taylor in the Penn Plaza Support and Action Committee, Economic Justice Circle, and the Pittsburgh Human Rights Alliance for the wisdom to ask for this public hearing today. And I'm hoping that all of you will take the request of Randall and the groups mentioned quite seriously. I think it's pretty amazing that in only a few years that we lost almost 9% of our Black population. I don't think as political leaders, you should look at that as just a figure, but a serious statement of what's been going on. I, along with many people from the coalition, as in my position as BPEP chair, I sat in on many of the conversations around the Penn Plaza effort when it was in its heyday, and heard from residents with passion in their voices about how they were being displaced and how they felt they may not be able to stay in the area of the city or in the city itself that they've been in many cases for decades. And I don't think this is by accident, whatever words you want to call it, but the gentrification of Pittsburgh, including the Hill District where I grew up, is not a conversation. It's become a reality, and even concerns now in Homewood. People who have lived in these neighborhoods should be able to stay in those neighborhoods. And with the monies coming into Pittsburgh with the COVID relief and the other program of our very dynamic president and vice president, these monies should be looked at. There should be serious analysis of how many of those dollars can be used for low to moderate housing for people in our, particularly in our African-American neighborhoods and others as well. But this is an issue that should be examined very closely. I love the idea of creating a philosophy of the right to return and creating policies and procedures that would make the right to return a reality, that you actually find out how people can return if they wish to return, because many of them did not want to leave in the first place. One of my BPEP council members from the Hill District, who was not a poverty person, she actually had a reasonably high job, but could not afford to stay in the Hill District. That's just ridiculous. She ended up leaving and going out into Wilkinsburg. So this is not just a conversation. It is a reality. So I'm hoping that you will move to accept this request, this investigation, this research, and this policy of the right to return.
Thank you very much. That we have now Mel Packards, followed by Richard Adams Jr. Mel?
Hi, I'm Mel Packer here. I live in Point Breeze. Listen, there's a joke I just heard. A mayor, a developer, and 7,000 black people walk into a bar. After the developer buys a couple rounds, he says to the mayor, I wonder what happened to those 7,000 black people that came in with us. The mayor replies, what black people? I didn't see any, but if you're still buying, I need another beer. Better yet, imagine one day a guy rushes into city council and says, I just drove through Greenfield and they're gone. Councilman says, what do you mean they're gone? Guy replies, people are gone. 7,000 Greenfield residents just gone. They said home values and rents went so high that people had to leave. Next day, the media reports city council holds emergency meetings to figure out why 7,000 mostly white people moved out of the city. Special funding is found for ads urging residents to come home. More funding found to make repairs to homes in disrepair. Homes taken by developers for resale at massive profits are seized by eminent domain powers of the city, and council apologizes to former residents for ignoring them for so long. But it wasn't Greenfield, from which 7,000 black residents fled between 2014 and 2018. It was the entire city, but mostly East Liberty and surrounding areas, where our city has given developers the same rights and powers white settlers had to deal with the indigenous population. Round them up, chase them out, wave goodbye. Some statistics to think on. 2014 Pittsburgh city population, 305,000. 2018, 301,000. It means, of course, during those 4 years in which 7,000 black people moved out, 3,000 white folks moved in. Think about that one. In 2014, black population was 23% of the total population. If the loss of blacks were proportionate, Pittsburgh would have lost 920 black people. Instead, we lost 8 times that. We don't wonder why. We don't admit we must have really messed up to see so many black people leaving their homes. Despite the talk from some elected officials about gentrification not happening in Pittsburgh, we know it is. We also know that because of systemic and institutional racism, black people will not return until this city says, come home, we need you, we want you, we screwed up, and we're not just talking about making corrections, we're doing it. It's high time that we as a city fessed up to the racism inherent in our deals with developers. Time to recognize there's a reason almost every study of the last few years has pronounced Pittsburgh as one of the most segregated cities of comparable size and one in which most black people apparently find no future. It is time to think way outside the box. Time to set up municipally owned and operated nonprofits to build affordable social housing like European nations do. Time to use some of that federal stimulus money to stimulate the right of return for black people driven from their homes. If we want Pittsburgh to be a model city, we need to begin modeling humanity and equity. Time is now, not tomorrow. And as the Black Panthers used to say, let's seize that time. For if we fail, we will all become victims of that time and the opportunities that we let pass. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Richard Adams, followed by Kimberly Harrell.
Hello?
Yep, you're on, Rick.
Hey, how are you doing, Councilman Burgess?
Hey, man.
Okay, I want to say that I'm very pleased to see that most of the council is in attendance. My name's Rick Adams, to be not as formal as introduced. The Pittsburgh Justice Coalition is a group of organizations and individuals who are opposed to the misguided and ill-fated war on drugs. June 17th will mark 50 years since President Nixon declared the war on drugs, which from the start was a war on us, Black people. We are here today to call attention to and protest a continuing crime against humanity. The city of Pittsburgh has mistreated Black people for more than the 50 years I have observed life here. One can mark the 1950s Negro removal push-out conducted to usher in the first Renaissance, which warehoused Black people in locations so isolated and scattered that it destroyed the geographic, social, economic, and political heart of the African American community. On a good day, a traveler could be lost all day and never find a Northview Heights or a St. Clair Village, for example. Decades later, the tearing down of public housing communities repeated the trauma, and scattered Black people once again. The present day gentrification, symbolized by Bakery Square with its $1,000 efficiency apartments, stands as a monument to this city's continued policy of ethnic cleansing. This city has scattered Black people, destroyed Black communities, and crushed Black families and criminalized Black individuals with an alarming consistency. For 5 decades, 2/3 of the Black people in Allegheny County have lived in the city of Pittsburgh. Now, seemingly overnight, the majority of African Americans live outside the city. Lack of employment, underemployment, denied access to mortgages, declining housing opportunities, minimal available credit for business startups, and no money for new business development have decimated Black communities. These conditions are made worse by police practices that make our neighborhoods war zones rather than communities. The scourge of drug addiction must be treated as a health issue. Drugs must be decriminalized if not made legal. Hold harmless, diversion, and treatment programs must be put in place of police action. End cash bail. Deploy social workers and mental health and other health providers to heal, not take family members to jail or attack, subdue, and fragment communities. Between 2014 and 2018, over 7,000 Black people, 9% of the remaining Black population, have left the city. The vast majority did not want to leave. If possible, they would have instead found affordable alternative housing in their communities. We demand that a policy of reparatory justice be immediately enacted that starts with allocating $250 million of the COVID-19 American Rescue Plan.
Thank you very much. We now have Kimberly Harrell, followed by Kenneth Miller. Kimberly.
Hi, and so I don't have all of the intellectual stats that all of the people before me have touted. What I have is experience, what I've lived through from moving from Beaver County to Pittsburgh. And I thought I was moving into an area of more opportunity. But what I moved into was systemic racism. What I moved into was one blighted area after the other because of affordability, because of the systemic systems that caused me to have to work 100 times as hard as anyone to just get out of one place and into another. I could remember applying for public housing and being approved for public housing and being given a list of available places. I would not house a dog in some of these places that were on these lists. And so what did that mean? That I had to go outside of public housing to find a place that was halfway decent for my daughter and I, who was 5 at the time, to having to maintain those places with my own thin dime, doing things like stuffing Brillo pads and scouring pads in cracks to keep rats and stuff from coming in, and just having to live that experience for many, 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 many years, going from one substandard housing unit to the next, which was a leg up from the last one, but still deplorable in deplorable neighborhoods, all around abandoned buildings and high weeds. And I say all that to say that my oldest daughter has been able to thrive here and heads up the maternal and child health department. But my younger daughter said, if I stay here, I'll be a criminal and a crackhead. And she moved to New Orleans at 18 years old because she experienced what we were living through. And that makes absolutely no sense. And so for me, I was fortunate to get a hand up and a leg up from different people to end up in a much better situation today. And I don't want to leave here. 90% of my family is here. I have a granddaughter, 25 years old, and a great grandbaby. To her, I don't want them leaving here to find affordable housing and decent jobs. That's not right. That's not right. And we should not be setting up racist systems that drive our kids out of here. That has got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Kenneth Miller, followed by Clara Wobble. Kenneth, Mr. Miller, are you with us? If not, we'll come back to you. I have Clara Wobble, followed by Carmen Brown. Ms. Wobble.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, my name's Clara and I live downtown in District 6. Today's hearing is long overdue and we need concrete policies to be the outcome today. It's not lost on us that although City Council is holding this public hearing, they're doing so because organizers petitioned them to. There are City Council members here today that deny what is happening in Pittsburgh is forced mass displacement of Black communities. We've heard this several times from Councilmember Burgess, including a few weeks ago at One Hood Media's Gentrification and Displacement webinar. As a recent graduate, I want to bring attention to the role that universities and medical institutions play using their nonprofit status, such as the University of Pittsburgh and UPMC. Several of their 30-year plans and comprehensive plans show further encroachment into neighborhoods such as South Oakland, the Upper Hill, and even Hazelwood through the Mont Oakland Connector Plan. Growth for universities and hospitals like UPMC comes at the cost of residents, especially in predominantly Black neighborhoods. And this must be addressed in a democratic way that holds institutions accountable rather than through the recent 1PGH plan. I also want to mention another facet that Pittsburgh touts as an asset, our transformation into a more sustainable city. In the Voluntary Local Review, a report released in October by the city to monitor its progress in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, the city gave itself a rating of 71% on SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. Part 1 of this goal includes ensuring access to safe and affordable housing. With a 20,000 unit shortage of affordable housing options and no mention of racial disparities in this section, 71% even seems generous. Another relevant sustainable development goal is SDG 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. Giving itself a rating of 29% achieved, this section briefly overviews the historical anti-Black housing policies of Pittsburgh and says, I quote, "Housing still remains largely segregated, and the institutions which laid the foundations for systemic institutional discrimination beyond just race still have much to do to rectify the injustices of the past and ensure more equitable access to justice," end quote. Acknowledging it in reports is not enough, and neither is acknowledging it through this public hearing. Pittsburgh needs to see no new displacement of Black residents, policies that allow displaced residents to return, and should use COVID relief funds to do so, not only to become a livable and sustainable city as Pittsburgh claims, but to help stop continued displacement of Black and low-income residents from the city and to repair past harms. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you very much. We have now Carmen Brown, followed by Gabriel Gray. Carmen. Carmen? You have to unmute yourself. We see you, but you're muted.
*6 on a phone.
*6 on the phone. Here you go.
Yeah, I was trying to get to my screen. Yes, my name is Carmen Brown, and I'm a community activist. Also, I am a housing activist. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about, you know, some of the issues that got us to this point. And I wanted to say this. Okay, so Bill Peduto, I believe that, yes, he was part of this housing issue. But, you know, a lot of these issues come from a lot of our Black leaders. And I'm going to tell you why. Because first of all, let's talk about the participation of our Black leaders in this process of gentrification. Yes, Bill Peduto played a part in these housing problems, but me in my neighborhood, as an activist and as a Black activist, I hold my Black leaders to a higher standard. And so when I say that, I'm saying that, you know, we did have other people participating in this, such as Ed Gainey and also you, Burgess, as well, because a lot of this gentrification happened when Ed sits on the URA board. He makes the decision. He grants, he votes a lot of this development. And this is what people don't get. They don't understand is that in 2014, if you're talking about that, that's when Ed Gainey actually got appointed by Bill Peduto. So that's when it seems that a lot of the gentrification soared during that process. And so, and Burgess, you rubber stamped a lot of this stuff. You were involved with the gentrification as well. So how can y'all sit there and say all these problems are going on with Black communities when you all played a big part in it? So I would say that we have to change our leadership. We have to change that. In order for us, especially in our community, we have to change our Black leadership. And again, like I said, is that, you know, Ed and you both played a part. Ed supported you in your campaign. Ed sits on the UIA board. Ed takes money from the developer, so do you. So again, how do we stop this perpetuating of Black people being pushed out into disparities when you are part of the problem? Y'all are definitely part of the problem. And this is why I have the lawsuit against you, Burgess, because again, you have violated a lot of other things besides, the disparities of Black people. And I think as Ed Gainey running for mayor, I wish we could have a Black mayor, but again, Ed Gainey is not that person because again, he played such a big part in this gentrification. Yes, Bill Peduto, again, yes, Bill Peduto was part of this, but also we have to, we as the Black community, we have to hold our Black leaders accountable. And I'm holding Ed Gainey and you, Burgess, accountable for all this. And I would say this, y'all owe the Black community an apology. You owe us an apology for the stuff that you've done to us, for the disparities, for the marginalizing, okay, for the systemic racism that is going on in our community. And our people are dying because of.
Well, thank you very much, Carmen. Carmen was a former student of mine, and I've seen she learned a little bit about public speaking in that class. We ask now Gabrielle Gay, followed by Fred Smith. Gabby, are you with us? Gabrielle Gray. Okay, do not see Gabrielle. We'll come back to her if possible. Fred Smith, are you with us? Fred Smith. Seeing no Fred Smith, we'll go to Christina Howe. Christina Howe. All right, I see you. Christina?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so thank you all for being here. It's lovely to see so many council people attending, and thank you to the organizations who made this happen. I'm here to talk a little bit about Bloomfield. With our robust transit system and access to jobs, Bloomfield is an ideal place for affordable housing. However, the Black population in Bloomfield between 2013 and 2018 has dropped 16.9%. Our housing values have gone up 183% in that same amount of time. Those numbers are extremely difficult, and I apologize, I didn't say I'm the executive director of Bloomfield Development Corporation. I should have acknowledged that, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the organization. We don't have the tools. Communities are not given the tools to create affordable housing and preserve affordable housing. And that power lies with our city government. And this has been an issue for many years, and we're seeing very little progress. If inclusionary zoning had been expanded throughout some of our neighborhoods, including Bloomfield and the Baum Center corridor, we would see hundreds, we would have seen hundreds, if not thousands of units being built. As it is now, my organization is working with an iconic site, and the developer wants to put in very little affordable housing, despite being in a location that is perfect for affordable housing. My ask is that, echoing some of the others on this call, that a significant portion of the $335,000 be allocated towards preserving and creating affordable housing. There are ways, other cities are doing this. They have enacted these policies years ago. And all we have to do, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is look at them, do the research, practically copy their legislation and bring it in. Investment in building new affordable housing is absolutely critical. In Bloomfield, we're seeing, we have a crisis with one building that recently changed ownership, and we're seeing an eviction crisis happening. So this money has to help people stay in their homes and also bring back the right to return is a very important piece of this. So thank you very much. That is all I have.
Thank you very much. Roy Blankenship, followed by Carl Redwood. Roy, are you with us? Roy Blankenship? Not seeing Roy Blankenship. Carl Redwood. Carl Redwood, followed by Robert Damewood. Carl, are you with us? Not seeing Carl. Robert Damewood, followed by, oh, do you, Carl?
Yeah, Carl Redwood Hill District. In Pittsburgh, over the last 4 decades, politicians have promised a city that would be economically and racially diverse, but one mayor after another, one city council after another, has accelerated existing class and race-based inequities. Since the 1980s, there is a policy and practice of forced displacement of Black families out of the city. There have been 2 main drivers for this displacement. One of the drivers is gentrification. By gentrification, I mean that the Pittsburgh neighborhoods that were redlined during and after World War II are now being flipped for profit by the banks and the developers. The Lower Hill and now Homewood are the biggest examples, but it is happening in all your council districts. The other driver has been the destruction of public housing without replacement. The practice of the housing authorities supported by the city and the URA has been to offer vouchers to public housing residents and promise them that they can return after the projects are torn down and rebuilt. But the return never happens for the vast majority of families. You call them, quote, housing choice vouchers, but the reality is they are no choice but to leave vouchers. In 1980, there were 100,000 Black people in Pittsburgh. By 2010, our population was down to 80,000. By 2015, our population was down to 75,000. By 2018, it was down to 70,000. The rate of displacement of Black families is increasing, not decreasing for Black families. Between 1980 and 2010, we were losing 2 Black people every day. Between 2010 and 2015, we were losing 3 Black people every day. Between 2015 and 2018, we were losing 4 Black people every day. The city must use stimulus funds to reverse this trend. 1, track down all Black people who left the city and find out why. 2, commit to right to return and develop publicly supported housing to make return possible. 3, follow the recommendations of the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Task Force that the city set up and then ignored. I hope all council people have reviewed the report that was put out by the task force. The Black is Back agenda for self-determination says that we must halt gentrification through the empowerment, stabilization, and restoration of traditional Black neighborhoods. Black people have the right to develop, plan, and preserve our own communities. No project shall be considered development that does not serve the interests of the impacted population, nor should any people displacing or otherwise disruptive project be allowed to proceed without the permission of that population. People that have been displaced from our communities by public or private development schemes have the right to return to our communities. We must continue to advocate for policy initiatives that will create truly affordable housing and end the displacement of longtime residents in an increasingly inequitable city. We must organize to reclaim, remain, and rebuild our city. Homes for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us, I'm going to go back to Roy Blankenship. Roy, are you with us? Roy Blankenship. Roy?
Come on, Roy.
He's,
Is he muted maybe?
no, I see him on. I'm not sure.
All right. We'll go to him when we can.
Thank you.
That takes us to James Randy Sargent, followed by Dwayne Ketchum. James Randy Sargent, are you with us? James Randy Sargent. I, I think I may have skipped over Robert Damewood. Robert, are you here? Here you go, Robert.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Reverend. My name is Bob Damewood. I'm a staff attorney with Regional Housing Legal Services. I'd like to thank council for holding a hearing on this important topic. I'd like to say a few words about the often repeated claim that disinvestment displaces more Black residents than gentrification. We've all heard it, and I'd like to talk about the implications that arise from that claim. In 2018, a research firm called Numerics published a report that purported to find that an average of 130 Black residents per year were displaced from East Liberty as a result of poor housing conditions from 2007 to 2011, followed by an average of 73 Black residents per year in the following 4 years due to gentrification. What Numerics didn't mention in their report is that the period that they chose to study lies between East Liberty's two largest mass displacement events, the Federal American Properties redevelopment, which displaced an estimated 172 Black residents per year over 3.5 years through evictions, attrition, and relocation, and Penn Plaza, which displaced an estimated 295 Black residents over a 21-month period because market changes in the neighborhood made a different use more profitable for the property owner. FAP is an example of what Peter Moskowitz, the author of How to Kill a City, calls stage zero gentrification, government action that makes an area ripe for attracting a different demographic. Displacing hundreds of Black residents from the East Liberty commercial core, along with the removal of Black street vendors around the same time, set the stage for private developers to build luxury housing there and pushed the market. Penn Plaza was a typical example of late stage gentrification, the loss of affordable rental units after the market heats up, because the landlord now has the option to convert the property to a more profitable use. Why is this important? Because if we want to stop Black residential displacement and remedy that displacement, the first thing we have to do is be honest about what caused it. The city will never be able to apply appropriate remedies without first acknowledging the harm and the city's role in creating that harm. The reality is that both disinvestment and gentrification cause Black displacement. Black Pittsburghers are disproportionately subjected to poor housing conditions, disproportionately uprooted by publicly funded redevelopment projects, and disproportionately harmed by private market speculation. Framing the choice as either unmitigated disinvestment or unmitigated development creates a false narrative and lets decision makers off the hook for doing the right thing. There are policies at the city's disposal that can prevent racialized displacement no matter where a neighborhood is in that disinvestment cycle, and we've heard much of them today. First and foremost, investing in affordable housing. It's time to implement and invest in those policies. Thank you for the opportunity to.
Thank you very much. That brings us to James Randy Sargent. James Randy Sargent, are you with us today? If not, that takes us to Dwayne Ketchum, followed by Celeste Scott. Dwayne, are you with us? Dwayne, are you with us? If not, that takes us to Celeste Scott, followed by Shannon Williams. Celeste, are you with us? Celeste? No Celeste. Shannon Williams, followed by Kai Jackson. Shannon, are you with us? Shannon? Seeing no Shannon. Kai Jackson, followed by Brenda Harris. Kai, are you with us? Kai Jackson.
All right, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, yeah, my name's Kai Jackson. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I'm a local city boy, and I'll cut to the chase. I've witnessed my mom on the knees before, begging a landlord not to evict us from a property because she didn't want to have she didn't have anywhere for her baby to stay far too many times. And I'd like to work to not have to see that again, because it is a heartbreaking sight. And it's not something that a kid who's only about 14 should have to worry about. From what I've heard from this meetings, I don't have stat numbers for you or anything, but it sounds like that $200 million that somebody's sitting on could really help some folks out. I really don't have much to say about this issue. I've been on the receiving end of landlord tyranny many a time, and I suspect I'll probably be on it many a time again before my life is out. I'm only 23 years old. I would just like to see some change in this city from our council members, from all of our elected officials. Like, this is somebody who has literally had to live through watching pretty much half of his city disappear, the same city he grew up in, the only home he's ever known, just disappear. I've lived through watching East Liberty get gentrified. I'm watching it happen to Garfield. It's going to happen to Homestead, where I live, pretty damn soon. They're already trying to turn it into a second East Carson Street. I can see the signs on the wall. I'm only 23. If you can't see it, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you shouldn't be a council member. But again, thanks for even letting me speak. A lot of people don't even give me that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. I have Brenda Harris, followed by Carol Hardiman. Brenda, are you with us? Brenda Harris. Not seeing Brenda, we'll move on to Carol Haldeman, followed by Jacqueline Bay. Carol.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Carol Hardiman. I'm Executive Director of the Hill District Consensus Group and a longtime resident of the historical Hill District. I am here to remind you about the decades of racist housing policies, practices, and intentional oppression against Black and Brown people. To begin, the U.S. history of redlining, predatory lending practices, and refusal of federal housing loans to millions of Blacks were racist policies instituted by the federal government and our local government as well. These same policies have always robbed Black and Brown families of the opportunity to own a home, decide where we wanted to live, as well as prevented us from creating wealth. It's uncanny how we still see this redlining pattern and oppression today in and of itself. In addition, there is no shortage of research or data that demonstrates how racism and displacement has limited Black and Brown people's housing options here in Pittsburgh. After all, these measurements have exposed a racist housing system that continues to fail Black and Brown people and thousands of renters that struggles to pay rent. In addition, these same data collections have created pathways for gentrifiers and developers to creep in. And this is due to the city's limited investment and opportunities in our existing community. This racist displacement of Black and Brown people predicate the broader issues of housing affordability, police violence, labor, healthcare access, education, and political participation, and so on. In addition, these issues, despite the 60s historical civil rights accomplishments, still doesn't make no sense. So regardless of our centuries of activism, storytelling, public grief, and patience, we are competing with white privilege and empires filled with superficial public leaders and political leaders that claim to be of goodwill with no sense of urgency. This is devastating that this violent behavior continues to cause harm to Black and Brown people today. The city of Pittsburgh must not continue to undermine our accomplishments and histories, nor ignore Black and Brown people's labor and pain, especially when our ancestors were slaves and made to build this city.
Thank you very much. I have Jody Lincoln, followed by Kanata Dane. Jody, are you with us today?
Yes, hi. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jody Lincoln. I'm a resident of Bloomfield, but here as a staff member for Oakland Planning and Development Corporation. So Oakland Planning and Development Corporation joins Penn Plaza Support and Action Coalition in calling on the city to prioritize the development of affordable housing, especially in communities that have lost by Indigenous people of color residents and homeowners over the past decades. Rental pressure in South Oakland and West Oakland has displaced hundreds of families with multi-generational roots in our neighborhood. And we can speak firsthand about the many ways this has weakened community ties and exacerbated economic inequality and racial injustice in our community. OPDC is an experienced affordable housing developer, both for sale and for rent, with a demonstrated track record of success. We work to build a healthier, more vibrant, more welcoming, and sustainable Oakland. Our ability to support our community absolutely depends on increased funding for affordable rental housing and creating new opportunities for affordable homeownership, and healing the wounds that displacement has inflicted on Oakland families and on our community as a whole. Penn Plaza Action Support Coalition's recommendation that the city survey residents lost to the suburbs is excellent. Like PPSAC, we expect affordability will be a common theme in the survey responses, but we also expect respondents to talk about public safety, employment opportunities, schools, and erosion of that sense of community that glues everything together. There's a well-documented need for thousands of more units of affordable housing to meet demand, and the city of Pittsburgh has a fantastic opportunity with the COVID relief dollars to invest in historically neglected communities and repair the damage that displacement has caused these neighborhoods and families. These are not simple problems with simple solutions, and organizations like OPDC are committed to addressing all the layered needs of our community members, past and present. We invite the city to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that James Randy Sargent is in the room.
Hi, it looks like it works this time. Sorry for not being able to answer earlier. My name is Randy Sargent and I live in South Oakland. Together with fellow residents, I help run an after-school technology and arts program in South Oakland, serving a 95% Black population of local kids. Over recent decades, as rents have gone up faster than incomes of our residents, we in Oakland have lost 40% of our Black residents. In the past years, as I've been helping run our after school program, I've seen many families of our program's kids lose their housing, all families of color. Some were evicted arbitrarily by landlords, and one family was forced to leave when a landlord refused to remediate a chronic sewage and mold problem. Ann Wright, sitting here with me, helps connect residents faced with eviction with legal help to prevent eviction across the county as part of her work. And her data shows that some of the worst landlords of South Oakland also behave against the interests of residents across Pittsburgh. After being evicted, I've watched families try to find alternative housing in South Oakland, but be unable to find anything affordable without a long waiting list. I've seen our neighborhood's evicted kids and parents separated from each other when they become homeless. I've seen our neighborhood's parents and kids lose possessions on the curb when they have no place to bring them. I've watched neighbors displaced to neighborhoods away from friends and away from relatives, away from public transit, and farther from jobs and educational opportunities. Pittsburgh must do more to control rising rents, to invest in low-cost housing, and invest in pathways to home ownership for Pittsburgh's Black families, whether single-family ownership or cooperative ownership, such as the successful Belmar Gardens. Pittsburgh must also invest in more equitable access to employment and business ownership, as so clearly laid out in the city's report on inequality across gender and race. I strongly support Bill 1372 and ask the council to please support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that Roy Blankenship is also in the room. Roy? Press *6. Here you go.
Yes, sir. How you doing? First off, I want to say thank you guys for hearing me, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. First off, that I do have to say is that I'm a father of 15, and my children are all through the Pittsburgh public school system. Me and my wife, we're doing our best to raise honor students. We have 4 children that are in college that went through the Pittsburgh Promise, and we're thankful for that. But as an African American, I work in the field of community development, civic and social justices. And in these works, I've seen the common factor was there's always money and funding to go toward the depressed neighborhoods, which happen to inhabit majority the African American population. While that being said, I'm watching my children go off to college, and as they're thinking about what their next steps are, my children want to leave home. They don't want to remain here as residents in the city because they feel that there's no actual future. And when you have that many children, you definitely don't want them moving to God's all over God's creation to start their lives. That we want them to have a faith in their community, their city. And I don't need to tell you guys what's missing and what's not right. There are quite a few city council members that I know myself and work with that are doing their best, but I think the intentionality needs to come forward fast. And I think that with this federal money coming into the city, there needs to be more of an effort for restorative housing as well as affordable housing, because affordable housing hasn't always shown to be the remedy. With that being said, I just say that I hope that our city works more in a unified fashion for all and expedite any type of issues that would make inequity or disparities amongst all citizens. Because if Pittsburgh wants to have the identity of most livable and most progressive, it has to show that equality across the board. And whatever it takes to get things done, I need, as a resident and a father, I'm imploring City Council to make moves and decisions that are going to benefit the future of all of our children. Thank you.
God bless you with 15 children. God bless you. After that, Jacqueline Bay. Jacqueline, are you with us? Yep. *6 on your phone. You're on the phone.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council as well. I just want to make kind of just a comment about a lot of the conversation about the racial inequities. I mean, yes, we do have to see Pittsburgh has been suffering a great deal of that. But I noticed that no one really mentioned that the fact that Pittsburgh has lost a lot of industry. It seemed like it's not been able to recoup industry and rebrand itself into the thriving city that it once was some time ago, that was able to sustain a lot of the employment opportunities, I would say, for the so-called African Americans, Blacks that live in the city. I'm happen to be one that left in the 90s. I did not only leave Pittsburgh, I left the entire state of Pennsylvania. I went to another place. And then I returned with my family early in 2010. And just coming back to that, I found that it's still, relatively the same. It's just not able to recoup some type of industry that will allow a lot of the Black Americans to have an opportunity to progress in the city. These mentions of Google and the tech business and tech industries and the medical industry, they're all well and good, but there's it's a great disparities in our community that's not one of the most chosen occupations of people of color. And again, it doesn't give us a lot more opportunities other than that to be either, drive a bus or, be maybe a healthcare worker, in-home healthcare workers. So, with that being said, I think Pittsburgh just need, as you as council, you need to kind of sit down and maybe revisit an opportunity to rebrand the city and find industries that can come back to the city and offer better opportunities so that you'll have more a population that will stay. The newer generations that's coming around about. I left again, because it just was not, I did some work, a lot of community work with just agriculture and little small community garden stewardship programs. But again, it just didn't allow for a lot of to bring progressiveness back to a place that once was. So that's all I want to say. I just want to make a comment about that. And, I hope to see everything going forward, things change for the better, for the newer generations.
Thank you very much. Celeste Scott.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for having me. I just wanted to thank Randall for the blood, sweat, and tears he put into the petition and making sure this hearing happened. It's been a long time coming. My name is Celeste Scott. I'm here today as a community activist, and I'm here today as a Black mother, and I'm here today as a displaced resident of Pittsburgh, forced displaced resident of Pittsburgh. Everybody that came before me was honest and a truth teller. I just want to give props to that, and props to all of the mentors that have shaped me and made me who I am in this movement. So we know we've been hearing this for years and years and years of what's going on, so I don't really have to even tell my story. My story is the story of many. I'm an original resident of Broadhead Manor, which we know does not exist anymore. Kai Jackson, who you heard speak, is my 23-year-old son. We have been street homeless. We have been pushed out. We have been displaced to homestead. And, even during the pandemic, we faced many struggles. And so I just wanted to say that we are in favor of the monies that come from COVID being given to the communities to rebuild, specifically the Hill, Hazelwood, and Homewood. Those communities need to be rebuilt, and we would like to have the resources to do so. I want to uplift all of the Black brilliance that is in the city, especially for Black gender oppressed people. We are the backbone of the city, and I'm almost here as a ghost today. I almost didn't make it here today. I had a stroke in September. Pittsburgh is a deadly city for people that look like me and of my gender. And so I just wanted to thank council for having this hearing. But I also know that the time is now. We don't have any more time to waste. People are dying. I don't have to tell you that. We know that. We have to be honest. Gentrification does exist. People are not choosing not to return. People are being promised empty promises, and those promises are not coming true. So the time is now to act, and we need to get serious about rent control, about tenant ownership, about making sure the resources are controlled by us. We know what we need. We have enough studies. I've been on enough forces and task forces. The task now is to make sure that nobody else is forced out. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is heard, that the time is now. I don't have a lot of statistics, but I have the lived experience, and we have to make sure that we have housing for people that are 30% area median income and below. And we have to make sure that there's restorative justice for the harm that has been done. Because as you heard my son speaking about heartbreak as a 23-year-old and wanting to stay here, we're not leaving. We're resilient, and our blood, sweat, and tears is on this land. So homes for all, and we have a right to the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment, and we are certainly praying for your health and strength and for recovery. Shannon Williams. Shannon, are you with us? No, I don't see Shannon, but I do see Kenya Dane. So Kenya, on the phone, press *6.
Can you guys
hear
me? Okay, thank you so much for allowing me to attend and speak. My name is Kenya Ardane. I'm a lifelong resident of Pittsburgh. I'm a single mom of 3, and I was one of the residents that actually moved out in 2014 due to the rising housing costs. I recently had to come back in 2017 to attend to my elderly grandmother. Once she passed, I had to move into what I know as Warren Court, which is now Oak Hill Apartments. In the year that I've been here, I have been told that I had another job. I've proved that I didn't have the job, and I've still been evicted with about $10,000 in back rent that they have not been even asked to prove about. The income-based requirements up here are not reality. You can't include a car payment. They don't include your car insurance. So if you are afforded to live up here, you know, you're basically forced to live in a box in poverty. Anything else outside your essential needs are not counted towards those income requirements. I also want to speak about the racism in Pittsburgh. As well as me being a single mom, I do hold 2 degrees. My one degree is in human resources, and I have another degree in criminal justice. I've been trying to attempt to get into the state parole board for the past 3 years. I've passed the test, and I do meet the minimum requirements that they have. I have a blatantly Black name, so, you know, every time it comes up for me to get to the top of the list, I'm not even chosen for an interview at all. And I've known the merit system. I've worked in that system as well, and it usually doesn't go that way. Usually based on your scores, they have to pick you for an interview. So that keeps us pretty much in a box in Pittsburgh. And with the gentrification that we had, it's not making it easy to live here. With the current situation I'm going through with Oak Hill Apartments, they did win the eviction with no evidence. That's now on my record. And just looking around to even find something in the area that's affordable is unrealistic at this point. Even in Homewood, there's homes going for $1,700, but we're not being offered jobs in order to pay this amount. So I hope council listens to all of us that's taking our time out of the day to come to here and, you know, voice our frustrations and hopefully get us some help. There's a lot of us that don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. Most of my family's up here. My children don't want to leave. So please listen and do what we need to do. It's time to stop playing like gentrification doesn't exist or these money.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Celeste Taylor, followed by Renee Wilson. Celeste.
Good afternoon.
Not entered any numbers.
Good afternoon.
Your meeting ID followed by pound.
I need to turn off the other phone. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm in favor of 1372. I'm so glad that many other people have spoken before me. I feel like they've really covered a lot of ground in terms of what the asks are. And I do think that this is a very unique opportunity for the city of Pittsburgh to repair harm that has been done and to make sure that those that have been displaced will have the opportunity to come back and live in a city that I believe is on the rise. I live in Homewood, close to Westinghouse High School, where I graduated from, but I grew up on the Hill. And these 2 communities in particular, I think, need to be looked at. And with the amount of monies coming in to help all cities, but our city in particular, I want to focus on that we cannot, blow this opportunity. Some of you know, 12 years ago, I created a regional equity monitoring project when recovery monies came into our city. And the reason I did that, because I believe that the citizens of Pittsburgh not only have concerns, but they have good ideas about what it will take to make matters better. And that is what we continue to do for decades and decades. My concern is that we don't make enough progress with these unique opportunities. So I'm really asking you to take this serious and use this opportunities to lift people that have been waiting on this for many years. I'm retired now, but I'm really active with gardens throughout Pittsburgh, but particularly Homewood. I have 4 grandchildren now, and retirement life has me in a home that I was able to buy, but I also have been able to help out other people because of the lack of affordable housing. And I also think we need to make sure that the housing stock we already have in these neighborhoods, that they are repaired. And that's it. I think you know what you need to do and you have the tools to do it. And I look forward to the day where we can truly say that Pittsburgh is the most livable city for all of us.
Thank you very much. Renee Wilson, followed by JT Walker. Renee, good afternoon. Renee, I need you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I hear you. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm blessed.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with y'all. I think that sometimes we forget that the people in the community that that work hard and pay their taxes and stuff like that, they may not make, you know, a lot of money. But if we made it to where those people can own houses in the community, we know that that makes neighborhoods more stable and makes things more safe when it's like that. We have a lot of houses in the city of Pittsburgh that are just falling apart and nobody seems to be doing anything with them. It would be nice to give them to some of these organizations who would like to fix these places up and give them to people. Celeste Taylor just mentioned that, like working with what we have already. We don't see enough of that. And, you know, we don't even have to touch on the disparities of Black people in Pittsburgh. It's just all over the place. Even the gardens that they grow the gardens on, the land that they grow the gardens on, or is never made to where they can own them. You know, they're always just there until it is needed. We need some permanency. You know what I mean? We should be able to have a mark here. We are not asking for, you know, anything. This is something that we should be able to receive because we too pay taxes to the city. We should be able to have some permanency. I come from a family who came to Pittsburgh in like 1920. We owned property. When we came up from Alabama, we came up with enough money to buy property. We bought property on the hill and was displaced when the Civic Arena went up. And from that point to here, that's what it's been. We come from a working family and still not be able to make a stable place and that, you know, a place for our history and our family roots. And that's very sad when we are the roots. A lot of Black history and Black people is just simply erased in Pittsburgh or tied up with too much politics. Even our cultural center, you know, we're not, the community is not even a part of that. And there's no way, nothing set up for us to even get it back where the community is running it. It's like, when you see things like this, it's very hurtful and harmful. And just to see some type of change, some type of true change. And it really doesn't, it's not about a lot of money. Sometimes this is just about listening to the people with what they need. We're down here, it's us that's burying our children and things like that. We want to be able to make that stop.
Thank you very much. That brings us to JT Walker, followed by Lethea Jane Sims. JT, are you with us?
Hi, my name is Jason Walker. I live in Shadyside and I'm the vice chair of the Green Party of Allegheny County. I first learned about the massive displacement of Black families from housing leader Carl Redwood years ago after the screening of East of Liberty. Since then, I've heard him talk about it on panel after panel in room after room. I know the mayor's been defending his record on this by saying that Black people are leaving the city because of bad schools. That's just another excuse in an endless line of passing the buck. This isn't his hearing, but almost all of you are on Team Peduto, and some of you have been repeating the same talking points, so I'll say it to you all too. If you think that our city's Black residents are leaving the city because of bad schools and not rising rents, not poor health outcomes, not systemic racism, you are lying to yourself and you're lying to all of us. This reminds me of the clean air battle. We have study after study making it clear that the air we're breathing is killing us. We know where that bad air is coming from, yet our local polluters and the elected leaders they donate to tell us we're making things up. We're seeing the same exact thing here. You replace the dirty polluters and the county leaders with developers and city leaders. Stop lying to our faces. We know from generations of redlining, highway construction, government efforts to maintain segregation, and other forms of largely intentional structural racism that low-income people are disproportionately Black. When Pittsburgh becomes unaffordable for low-income people, Black people leave the city. When you tear down affordable housing and don't replace it with affordable housing, Black people leave the city. You know about the Section 8 wait lists, the difficulty in getting into public housing. This situation is completely messed up and the alarm has been rung for years and years. Having Black people move out of the city to be replaced by white people and throwing up your hands is not a tenable solution. I know city coffers don't see a difference between someone who's lived in Pittsburgh their whole life and a tech employee from Seattle, but we, the residents of Pittsburgh, do see a difference. You as our representatives should as well. This needs to be addressed directly, not just with market mechanisms. One, we need real investment, and we have the opportunity to make that investment with federal stimulus funds. We need to use those monies to invest in public housing that's high quality. We also need a right to return policy for displaced residents and not just in name only. Too many people are lost in the cracks, and we saw with Penn Plaza, the demolition where residents were scattered to the wind. That was a high profile example, but there are low profile examples happening all over the place. Just look at the numbers. We can't let anyone fall through the cracks. A right to return doesn't mean anything if people don't know they have that right. Three, the Fair Housing Task Force made a bunch of excellent recommendations after a massive public process, which I was lucky to be a part of. Take them off the shelf and actually implement them. Show that you care about renters, even if they aren't your campaign donors. Lastly, I'll say to all the council people, stop taking developer money if you don't want your loyalties questioned. Why do you even need their donations? Half the time, nobody is even running. We don't have real elections in Pittsburgh, and definitely in November when all Pittsburghers can actually vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Alethea Sims, followed by Nikki Jo Dawson. Alethea, are you with us?
Hi.
Hi, how you doing, Alethea?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm blessed. You're on.
Okay. As Councilman Burt just said, my name is Alethea Sims. I am the president of the Coalition of Organized Residents of East Liberty and a lifelong resident of the 9th Council District. I have been living in East Liberty for the past 38 years, and it has not been easy. A 20-year resident of the East Mall high-rise was all of a sudden declared unlivable. Basically, everyone was told, take a voucher, take the money, take a hike. The 3 high-rises had tenant councils that were recognized by HUD, and we formed CORE. CORE filed a class action lawsuit to have the right to return to whatever was being built on those properties. I am afraid that if we had not done that, there would have been a lot more of us scattered to whoever, wherever. It should not have to come to a lawsuit to stay in the neighborhood where we choose to live. I was hoping that with the high rises, I would not see that again. Unfortunately, I have seen the same thing happen, the same kind of displacement happen in East Liberty Gardens and in Penn Plaza. Why should redevelopment, revitalization of a community involve people that live there through the bad times having to move? There should be a way that the people who live through the bad times should benefit from the good times. And the best way is to just sit down and listen to us. We have proved ourselves over and over again that poor people aren't stupid. We know what we need. We know how to sit with the suits downtown and make our voices heard. We don't have to be yelling and screaming, but sometimes it feels like we have to in order for you guys to hear us. It shouldn't be that way. We should be able, when this money comes in, to be able to sit down with you as intelligent adults and be a part of the decision-making process as to how this money can develop and benefit our communities so we don't have to scatter out of the city. We can stop this displacement of Black people.
Thank you very much. Nikki Jo Dawson, followed by Brian Hagalekis. Nikki Jo, are you with us? Nikki Jo Dawson. No, Nikki Jo. Brian Hagalekis. Brian. Unmute yourself and come on. I see you, Brian, but we cannot hear you. You have to unmute yourself. Brian? Well, Brian, can you unmute yourself? If not, I'll come back to you. I have now Michael Parker, followed by Damian Hodges. Michael Parker, are you in the room? Michael? No Michael? No Michael Parker? Damian Hodges. Damian.
Yes, hello? Can you hear me?
Damian.
Hello?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'd like to, first I'd like to say this is definitely a step in the right direction for Pittsburgh. However, things have to be looked at. This huge displacement issue, a part of it is caused from the lack of education that was started, that ball.
We lost you, Damian. The challenges of technology, huh? Damian. Can you come back to us, Damian? If not, Damian, can you come back to us? If not, then I suppose we'll have to move on and come back to you. Ikahana Mau Makina. If you unmute yourself, you're on.
Greetings of peace, light, and love. My title is Ikahanahau Makina. I'm the Grand Inca, which is the chief of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aborigine American People, and I am glad to be before you, City Council members, and those in attendance for this meeting today. I would like to enter onto the record the definition of gentrification. It is the process whereby the character and the essence of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing the current inhabitants in the process of rapid gentrification. Gentrification has been an issue in the city of Pittsburgh for many years now. Redlining, gerrymandering are all under the guise of the color of law. I am an advocate for land justice, and I speak for the marginalized people, those who are called colored, Negro, Black, and Indian, if you will, by the land bank colleges that exist of old and the new ones that exist today. As Martin Luther King eloquently put it, we are exiles in our own land. And when will City Council do something about it is a larger question. When will you provide the redress and the repair and make us whole again? You tore down public housing, Barfield, St. Clair Village, Francis Street on the Hill, Robinson Court, and left most of these spaces and places abandoned. For what? What did you tear them down in the first place for? Only to leave them in disrepair and an abandoned state, when those spaces could have continuously be used for housing, affordable housing, in one of America's most livable cities, most affordable cities it once was. I have young adults that I've given birth to that are on the outskirts of Pittsburgh today, living in foreign territory where they're quite often being discriminated against because they're different, because the color of their skin they're being judged. It leaves me uneasy at night knowing that my children are not within 5 to 10 minute span that I can get to them to save them, to protect them, if you will. If they were just a little closer, not being exposed to racism up front, close and personal where they live. It is unfair to displace us as indigenous people of this land. We were here first before the explorers came here.
Thank you very much. Let's go back. Fred Smith, are you with us? Fred Smith. No Fred Smith? Okay. Shannon Hughes. Oh, there you go, Fred. Wait a minute, Fred. Here you go, Fred Smith.
I didn't even know where to mute. At first, I didn't even have that. All right, so thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Just for an opportunity to speak. I'm a volunteer, actually a co-chair for Perry Hilltop and Fineview, and we have been talking about displacement and working on keeping our community diverse and people into our community. And everybody who went before me pretty much covered a lot. I was going to talk about the gentrification and displacement of the Civic Arena, Crawford Square, St. Clair Village, Broadhead, Westgate, Lower Manchester. But I'm gonna talk about the Lower North Side now. And the Lower North Side was once diverse, and it had, in 1999, they tore down the police station and moved in the medical center, the Allegheny Medical Center. Soon after that, across the street, They relocated the Carnegie Library on there. Them is two good things. 10 years later, they put two sides of row houses on both sides of the street. These row houses go from $300,000 to $500,000. After that, the whole north side, bottom half of north side was gentrified. People who move out of there could not get back in there even if they tried. We're noticing that they're trying to gentrify the upper north side. Now we'll start with Fineview and Perry Hilltop, where we're saying, no, we drawing a line in the sand. We ain't with that. But, you know, this seems like it's a plan, because all them communities is from different sects of the city where gentrification happened. This is a plan. It's not just something that happened. Like, somebody literally decided that I'm shutting these areas down where mostly African Americans reside for whatever reason. We don't know the plan, you know. But there's a lot of houses in all of our communities that's, you know, with the treasury sale and land bank and things that are broken. There's a lot of abandoned houses that, you know, that could be repaired and fixed up, and Black families can go in these houses. These can be affordable. We already up there in Perry Hilltop and Fineview, we already put 2 affordable houses on the market in Fineview, you know, which is awesome. We have a tenant in there with Section 8, and we got another property available that we're looking at a tenant. So we're just asking that this stuff, that, you know, the city of Pittsburgh becoming too white. You know, it is, you know, and where's the diversity?
Thank you very much. We have Sharon Hughes. Sharon Hughes. Sharon?
Thank you. It's actually Shannon Hughes. Thank you. Also, I was having some tech issues, so I'm a little frazzled, so I'll try to get through this without stuttering. Also, I do know there's a number of people who are trying to speak and are not able to, and I don't think that's fair representation of the people who are here today. I'm a native of Pittsburgh's North Side and long-term advocate for Pittsburgh residents. I watched my community disappear and be replaced by overpriced and ill-fitted restaurants and stores. Schools sit empty and neglected, community programs closed down, and kids being harassed by city police for what became loitering in their own communities when no other options existed. As a social worker, I've witnessed Pittsburgh natives be denied access to support, to education, employment, transportation, health, and childcare, which led to their displacement. As an advocate, I've supported families who were unfairly and illegally removed from their homes and communities. A student of mine, moved with his family to a house in Homewood. After he and his family fixed the house up, the owner raised the rent and priced them out, and they were evicted within days. They no longer can live in their community. St. Clair Village was leveled out over 10 years ago, which led to much instability and despair for the families who lost their homes and community. At that time, I facilitated a program at Schumann Juvenile Detention Center and encountered young boys who were only there because they were now homeless due to gentrification. In Homewood, 2-bedroom townhomes are being rented for a minimum of $1,000 per month, and basic houses are being sold for over $200,000. This is well beyond affordability for the existing community, which has and will continue to effectively remove and the current residents who will be replaced by university, big corporation, tech, research, and other forms of gentrifiers. Our communities are being taken, renamed, and our people erased and left to fend for ourselves with little to no resources, access, or support. And as the founder of the Wellness Collective, we take on new families and neighbors every day who are being pushed, neglected, and priced out of their homes and communities. It has been the community, not the government, who has been effective in stabilizing communities. It has been our government who has turned a blind eye to the needs and rights of the people in favor of out-of-town developers and their beneficiaries. Pittsburgh has not been on the right side of community or justice. The opportunity to restore what has been systematically and systemically taken from Black communities by generations of displacement is upon us. We are not 3/5. We are whole, full, voting people, and it's time for the city to do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The person that I have, Brian, did you ever able to be with us? Brian Haugalakis. Brian, are you able to unmute and get to us? Brian? Well, Brian doesn't seem to be able to join us. And so that brings me to David Brennigan.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Bringen. I'm the Executive Director of Lawrenceville United, and I'm a Lawrenceville resident. And want to thank Council for having this hearing and for everybody who helped make it happen. I just wanted to make a couple of points. I've talked about housing a lot, but you know, just to start, you know, Lawrenceville is often talked about as ground zero for Black displacement, and indeed the statistics are incredibly stark here in Lawrenceville. We lost half of our Black population across Lawrenceville in just 5 years. We lost half of our housing choice vouchers, over 120 units between 2011 and 2016, which disproportionately are held by Black residents. And many of these residents faced multiple cycles of displacement. For example, much of our Black population that was displaced originally migrated to Lawrenceville after public housing projects were disbanded in other neighborhoods like East Liberty. I really want to stress that Lawrenceville is not an exception to the rule, but the tip of the spear, and a particularly dramatic and condensed example of a larger trend. I see the market conditions that led to displacement in Lawrenceville happening in many other neighborhoods, both predominantly Black neighborhoods like Garfield and the Hill District, as well as predominantly white neighborhoods like Bloomfield and Polish Hill, and even our inner ring suburbs like Millville and Sharpsburg. The city's new market value analysis clearly documents these trends with hard, objective data. I come to community organizing not from the community development side of things, but from working with the Somali Bantu community here in Pittsburgh, as well as working with young people, parents, and our neighborhood public schools. A defining moment in my career was when the social worker at Arsenal Elementary School begged me to help her with her caseload because so many of our Arsenal families were homeless. So, you know, I really want to stress that when we talk about housing, we're not just talking about housing, we're talking about education. We're talking about food access. It's a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. We can't talk about any of these issues without also talking about housing. Black residents are disproportionately impacted by all of these trends, and we should be centering them in all of our strategies and policy solutions. But I also want to stress that poor and working class white folks are impacted by this too. I've seen this particularly impact families and school-age kids in my neighborhood, but also seniors, veterans, folks with disabilities, even older homeowners in my neighborhood who get preyed on by predatory practices as the neighborhood housing market heats up. And so when we focus and uplift our most marginalized residents, our Black residents, especially poor and working class and gender oppressed Black residents, all of our communities win, and we uplift all of our residents. We at Lawrenceville United have worked hard, but we're playing catch up, and we can't do this alone. And it frustrates me that rather than learning lessons from Lawrenceville and getting ahead of the worst impacts of these issues in other communities, we seem to be repeating the same mistakes. But luckily, there are things that we can do. You know, the right to return policy, I think, is a great strategy that we should be pursuing.
Thank you very much. I have Samuel Gibson, followed by Chris Ivy. Sam, are you with us? You have to unmute yourself.
I am. How we all doing today?
Hi, Sam. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I was going to get on here and talk about and give you guys a definition of gentrification. And I'm not going to do that because I don't believe in wasting people's time, but I do want to say this. I think it is imperative by everyone who's on here and everyone who holds an elective office We can't continue to keep going down this rabbit hole that we have been going down for years. It is imperative that you guys do what's right for the community that you represent. I just want to say this. It was very big of the mayor, Bill Peduto, to put in place two particulars, Ricky Burgess and Ed Gainey, as mediators or support people within the community that I live in. And unfortunately, it did not work. We can point the fingers at many people, but what we want to do is we want to say we're sorry and move on, because wasting time and people's effort and people's good reasonings to try to do the best for the community, that's just senseless at this point. I just really ask and I beg you guys, everyone on here who has a vote within this, including you, Mr. Burgess, I would just do the right thing, please. At this point in time, I don't think the money needs to be allocated to any particular politician. I think it needs to be watchdogged over another organization that no politician has his finger on. No politician is going to do a favor for another person, or another person is going to do a favor for a politician. I think it needs to be particularly for an outside agency. But I ask you all, and I leave this for you all by, I believe it was written by Kennedy. It's not what you can do for your city, but what you can do to change your city. And it was something as such as that. I leave that with you guys. It is not what your city can do for you. It is what you can do for your city. I ask you all to think of that, honestly and truly. When you go into this into this next place that we're going into, and all this funding that's coming down, look at it like that, please, guys, because where the communities are suffering, and the people left because it's gentrification. Gentrification came by people voting for it, and it wasn't right. You guys be blessed and stay safe, wash your hands, and thank you for this chance.
Thank you, Senator. That takes us to Chris Ivy, followed by Gabrielle Gray. Chris. Chris Ivy, are you with me? I do not see Chris. Gabby. Gabrielle Gray. All right, Gabby, you're on. Gabby? Gabrielle? You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Gabrielle Gray?
Can you hear me now?
Hear you now. How you doing, Gabby?
Okay, very good. Let's make sure you can hear me. My statement is written, but it's written on a different app. I think maybe because I'm leaving the Zoom app, I may not be able to read my statement. I'm gonna do a sound check real quick. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, greetings, council and city residents. My name is Gabrielle Gray, Homewood District 9. I pray everyone is in good health today. While I am 100% against the socioeconomic genocide that will become institutionalized through the Homewood Comprehensive Plan for Redevelopment, I'm actually here today to discuss the fact that there should not be one plan for development implemented until the Pittsburgh water crisis that we are currently in the midst of is 100% resolved. It is my concern that PWSA is getting away with horrendous offenses that are 100% criminal. And instead of sweeping the offenses of PWSA under the rug, these offenses must be taken to the DA. It is well past the time for you to handle your business and punish, not slap on the wrist, Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority for their magnanimous crimes against their customers. Moreover, per the recommendation of Attorney Josh Shapiro, it is time to force the necessary reforms to take shape to keep Pittsburgh's drinking water safe. Shapiro made this statement after he filed 161 third-degree misdemeanor charges, which should have been felony charges in 2019 against PWSA for failing to notify residents of its water line replacements and failed to conduct sampling, which still to date, the sampling has not occurred. If anything further stated is not yet considered criminal, then pass some legislation to make every single item hereafter addressed a crime. 1, PWSA has been charging customers for polluted water that is due to PWSA's extreme neglect without providing to all customers free filters and/or rebates coupons for water filtration, which creates a bottled filter water bill for customers on top of their PWSA bill. 2, PWSA received a slap on the wrist in 2021 for violating the Clean Water Act by dumping sludge into the Allegheny River. More needs to be done to punish PWSA for this magnanimous crime. 3, PWSA is now increasing water rates for lead-filled water, soon to make water unaffordable for City of Pittsburgh residents. 4, PWSA has caused a grotesquely serious rat problem without any rat control in the city by digging up old lead lines that PWSA should have been replaced. And 5, the EPA only gave Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority a citation for violating the Clean Drinking Water Act. This is leaving the authority's drinking water. The water leaving the authority's drinking water plant is basically lead free, but it flows through the city's decades-old water system. A quarter of homes in the system use lead service lines, which have been banned for decades, but remain in place still. Going over the multitude of problems, Michael Lamb noticed common threads: a lack of leadership within PWSA, unauthorized changes often to cut costs.
Thank you very much, Gabby. That thus brings us to Shaman Poman, followed by Haley Presley. Shaman, are you with us?
Greetings, and Lakeisha Abakain. Now, I did have something written that I wanted to say, but I think right now what I'll do is speak from my heart. I am Shaman Pomai Chakmam Yahalahi, medicine woman healer of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People, and for all of the people of the city of Pittsburgh and all its surrounding territories. Over 15 years ago, I was at an event that was held by Community Empowerment Association. And it was a lovely event in the park, Mellon Park. And I walked upon a table, a friend and I, and there were 2 white girls sitting at the table with nothing there but a pen and a piece of paper. And I said, "What are you doing here? This is a wonderful event. Glad to have you here." It was celebrating Black history. And so they said, "Oh, we're just here to inform people of the 50-year plan that we have for Homewood." I said, "Oh, wow. I grew up in Homewood. I never heard of this plan." They said, "Oh, well, yeah, this has been in discussions for over the last 50 years, and it's a plan to develop Homewood." That was my first experience with gentrification coming. Now, fast forward to today. I have advocated for Black people, people who identify as Black, and people who identify as brown. I'm an Aboriginal American. This is my land. If we want to talk about land displacement, let's go back in time. How about the 12th century? How about when Carlos Quintos invaded Central America? We're not just the United States Americans. We're the Americans of the entire Americas. And most people are limited in their scope of reasoning and information. The United States is a small part of the Americas. And our ancestors have been here since time immemorial. So we're the first to be displaced. We had homes, towns, villages, roads, structures, millions of them all throughout the Americas in recorded history. Unfortunately, most people don't know this, but we do. And there's artifacts and many documents and pictures and paintings from Europeans who said when they came upon our lands, how magnificent it was, how beautiful it was, the roads, the buildings. You only built on top of what was already here. You only added to what we already had. So what I am saying is do the right thing for the residents of this community. Many of our people are intertwined within these communities. We Aborigines are not a small community. We're quiet. We go about our day to day. We raise our children. We love ourselves. And we give and help all the other residents that are here within the city limits and above and beyond. So I say, do the right thing by who you say you represent in your individual districts. that identify as Black and African American and brown, and even the European people in your districts who are under the poverty line, who may not be able to afford this increasing rents. And as you think about these things in this land development, never forget that free and prior informed consent must be made with the Aborigines. We will be at the table of these discussions.
Thank you very much. Haley Presley, followed by, I just have a first name, Destiny. Haley?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I'm Haley Presley, and I'm calling from the Northside Brighton area. And I would like to capitalize on what my mother, Ikahana, was saying by recalling a time when I lived in Garfield, which is my home area, and being kicked out of my home to house people who were offering more money than what it cost to live there. And not because we were late on bills, and not because we were trashing the place or causing disturbances, but just solely to house people who were coming to take my home, which is all what people were speaking of about the gentrification problem. And Pittsburgh used to be one of the most like affordable cities to live in, and it is like literally the complete opposite now. And there's a very high lack of attention to brown people, and the fact that there are little to no options for affordable living within the city. I myself am only 19 years old, and I'm working 3 jobs and still living at home with my parents, and not because I want to, but simply because I can't afford to live in the city. And I don't want to move across the state or out of the state only because I can't afford to live here on my own. And I just want to urge my city council to make living affordable for me and generations after me. As I am only 19, I find it ridiculous that sometimes I feel like I'm getting nowhere when we should be able to live and enjoy our city without having to think that we have to move to places we're not familiar with in order to just live comfortably. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Haley. Destiny. First name only is Destiny. Are you with us, Destiny? Seeing no Destiny, I have Tamika Scott. Tamika Scott. Seeing no Tamika Smart, I get Tamika Scott. That takes us to Carla McGee. Carla McGee, are you in the room? Carla McGee. See no Carla McGee, it takes us to, only have a first name, Mona? Mona? See no Mona, I have Jacob Klinger. Jacob Klinger. All right, so I will go through the names that I have called but that were not on, and then see if we can give them their opportunity. I have a Kenneth Miller. We did have Gabrielle, so that's taken care of. Dwayne Ketchum. Dwayne, can you unmute, Dwayne? There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dwayne Ketchum. I'm a Hill District resident in the Robert Crawford area. I returned to Pittsburgh about 12 years ago, and I grew up in Pittsburgh. I lived in Pittsburgh at a time when the Hill District was thriving, where you had a population that was diverse in socioeconomics, and it worked. Now, my concern is the discipline associated with this pursuit of displacement. And the discipline is, I see the numbers, I understand the analytics, but I think at times we jump too quick to draw a conclusion as to why the exodus occurred. I think there needs to be a clear understanding as to why folks left these communities. If they did leave, where did they go? What kind of housing did they find? If they are now in other areas in low income housing, will they want to return to the Hill District? Do they want to return to East Liberty? Do they want to return to Homewood? I don't see anything that suggests that we've even addressed that issue or those issues. I think Tim Stevens said that people should have the right to return. I agree with that. But I think that that's such a limited scope. And I think one of my dissatisfactions with having been here in Pittsburgh for the last 12 years or so is that our scope as we address issues always seem to be so limited. And I think the scope should be, what do we need to do to attract more Blacks to live within these communities? We have a lot of professionals that live in suburban areas. We have preachers that live here in the Hill District. We have politicians that live here or work here in the community. They support the community, but they don't live here. What do we need to do to attract them to the community? So I think that the scope needs to be broadened. We need to find a way to get a more diverse socioeconomic Black population within these communities. We need to have more proactive measures that provide paths to ownership. We need to look at, as one other gentleman said, vacant properties within the Hill District, within Homewood, as to how we now can make those available for Blacks for ownership. We need to question the URA and the Housing Authority, where they.
Thank you very much. All right, the next person I have is Brenda Harris. Brenda? Is there a Brenda Harris in the room? All right. The next person that I see that did not speak was Nikki Jo Dawson. Nikki Jo, are you here? Nikki Jo. All right. The next one I hear again is Brian the Lucas. Brian, we see you. See if you can unmute yourself. There you go. I think maybe. No, not yet. Brian, can you unmute yourself? I think Brian's unable to mute himself. All right. So the next person I'll go to is Michael Parker. Are you in the room, Michael? Seeing no Michael Parker, that takes us to Chris Ivy. Chris, have you signed in? Are you in the room? Chris Ivy. Seeing no Chris Ivy, that takes us to the last few speakers. Destiny, first name only. Don't see. Tamika Scott. Tamika. Carla McGee. Carla. Monica, first name. We're not Monica, Mona, rather. Mona. Last is Jacob Klinger. Having seen those names, I think we have had over 35 speakers. We have exhausted the public hearing. In terms of public speakers, I would now open it up to members for their reflections. Any member want to say something? Deb, Councilwoman Gross. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to thank and acknowledge all of the speakers who made time out of their day to wait and to share your stories and to highlight this, this issue for City Council. I heard a lot of people talk about the tools that really are there, but we just really need to activate them, right? We've heard some common themes over the years that I've been on council, the problem of vacant properties, the problem of inclusionary zoning, the problem of providing paths to ownership. And we've taken only baby steps on a lot of those issues. And we can do more, and we should do more. Certainly, it is just not our mission to drive residents out of our city. We are a city built for twice the number of people that we currently house. And we should be doing things better and more creatively and sooner to keep the people who want to live here. So I just wanted to thank everyone for making the time and for highlighting this issue. And I look forward to working with you. I think we can and will be talking about this issue. We know that when we talked about it some 4 or 5 years ago, when we first started talking about inclusionary zoning, for example, my colleagues would hear me say, I know that I'm talking about this happening in my district, but, and I respect that you don't think it's happening, it's not happening in yours, but it will come. They will run out of space in my district and it will spill over, and it will be these risks, these threats, these market-driven problems will all move to other parts of the city. And I've said this before, just to wrap up, for many, many decades, as a city, as a county, as the state, we developed and used tools to fight disinvestment and blight. But now we also, and that was like kind of the problems of broken markets. And I think that's the rightful and good thing for government to do. But there is the complementary problem of hyper-invested markets and gentrification. And that drives this kind of displacement that I also think is a broken market. It's the overheated market. And I think it is rightful for us as government to do something about that too, to moderate the market, to support, use the tools that we have to make our city more livable, and certainly to prevent people from being pushed outside of the city. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other member of council? Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Reverend Burgess. And I want to thank all the callers. I really tuned in today to listen and to learn more than anything. It's kind of eye-opening when I heard the number of Black families and Black people were moving out of Pittsburgh. I think it was 7,000 in the past so many years. So it always gives me a chance to plug my side of town. I always say we have open doors here. We are very diverse communities over here. We have great schools, we have great parks, and we still have affordable housing. However, as Councilwoman Gross pointed out, that is also changing, and I can see how that, is changing in my areas as well. So I don't claim to have the answers, but I do have one personal story. Friend of mine, Larry Miller, who used to live in Penn Plaza when he was being displaced. My girlfriend and I, we went out of our way to try to find him better housing, or housing, period. We found him a place that in Mount Washington, Councilwoman Kill Smith's district. Beautiful place, one little one-bedroom apartment. That's really all he needed. Paying less money than what he was at Penn Plaza. And, he was tickled pink at first, but in reality, he wanted to be back home. And back home for him was East Liberty. And I suppose this is a prime example of gentrification. He cannot afford it. He can't afford to buy a home or find a place in East Liberty. So he's kind of stuck on our side of town. I don't look at that as a crutch, but, I think, just like everybody, I think has a sense of, community, where they're from, and that's where they want to live. So my point is, for folks who are being pushed out, whether it be gentrification, whether it be other reasons behind it. I wish they would look into the South Hills. I think there's still opportunity here. Fastly, the door is closing on it, I will say. I hate to think it happens over the entire city, but yeah, so I just wanted to thank the callers, thank everybody. It was very informative for me, to listen in, and, I will work closely with our other council members to try to rectify the problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Other members of council, Council President Teresa Kell Smith.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for chairing the meeting. You always do such a great job. And thank you to all the speakers who came out. I think that there's a couple things, and I've heard a lot of people cover all this stuff, but as a person who's had a mom who's been forced out of a community, Wiley Avenue first and now Fifth Avenue at 98 years old because of development. And it was interesting to hear the Oakland speaker talk about the importance of Oakland being a place to keep people home. I know a lot of residents don't feel that way there as well. And as we talk about more development occurring with universities in the area, I think it's something to keep in mind that we have to make sure that we're working on all the areas. However, I have a different, in my area, I have one neighborhood, Chartier City, which has the highest home ownership in the city of Pittsburgh. About 90% of it's homeowner occupied, and it's predominantly Black. And my struggle is trying to keep it that way, because a lot of people find the affordability on our side of town, and it's a beautiful community, low crime, properties are well maintained, a beautiful park, which we're getting ready to put in a spray park. So people want to live there, and it's close to a lot of things, close to the Sheridan Busway, close to McKees Rocks, close to a lot of things that people want. The challenge is making sure that we keep it a predominantly Black community. And I do thank Reverend and Councilman Lavelle for the administration for the Avenues of Hope, because I think that will help us somewhat. But I think there's a lot of other efforts that we're doing in our district, because we do have the overabundance of affordable housing in District 2, but it's not all of it's habitable. So we are working with the URA and with Richard Snipe, who's an amazing person, knows housing very much, to redo some of the homes. But I do think it's a conversation. I think once we can get people into the homes, if we could remodel them and put some of this funding into remodeling homes, I think we'll have a lot of quick, accessible housing, at least southwest of the river. But the problem is then they also need resources. People who move into affordable housing or anywhere, whether you're affordable or not, I think you need housing. You need some services. You need grocers. You need things that we are working with the Porter Project. Right now, they're doing a delivery with Giant Eagle of groceries to the Porter building, and residents can order their food from Giant Eagle and pick it up right in the neighborhood of Sheridan. And so that's a project that the administration's also been working on and brought to our side of town. And I connect them to the Porters, and they've been so gracious to give an entire kitchen up for the project. But that's great. But there's also a need for, I think, social services. And I think that's where the county, we have to have some conversations with the county about the services that they're bringing in. But I think schools, I mean, we can talk about all these things. And one of the things, actually met Celeste Taylor when we were working together on schools. And so it's interesting that decades later, it's like we're having the same conversations over and over again about the schools. And I know Reverend and Daniel and others are looking into some of those things, but I think that there's just a serious conversation that has to occur as to what we need to do to not only make it that the affordable housing is available and habitable homes that are affordable homes that are uninhabitable become renovated and habitable. I think those are all really important. And I will say in Broadhead, where I heard people talking about, even though the housing study said that we have an overabundance of affordable housing in District 2, that we actually need some market rate housing, with two of the developments that are occurring, the one in the West End and one in Broadhead. Both cases, we asked that in Broadhead, we asked that they make it affordable for senior retirement homes, patio homes for the seniors that want to stay in Broadhead, and they are doing that. But I think affordability is even a question, because what people consider affordable now isn't necessarily affordable for the salaries in Pittsburgh. So I think that there's so much that has to go together, and I'm eager to work with my colleagues who want to make sure that we do that. But we're also working on the development in the West End that is going to be market rate, which we need. But he's going to put a few affordable units in that housing as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to work together and do some of the things, the mixed income, and you know, I'm eager to see what we can do with some of the properties working together. But I'm also eager to see how we get services into our side of town. And I think we've begun that a lot with Christy Porter and her project, which is why it's so crucial to our side of town. So thank you, and thank you, Reverend. I'm really eager to work with you on some of this.
Anyone else? Any other member of council? If not, I'll say a few.
Well, can I just say one more thing, Reverend? I do want to say one more thing. I do want to say that I hear people come a lot of times, and I was just telling your staff this yesterday, that I remember when I first met you, I didn't really even know you. I was working for Wireless Neighborhoods at the time, Steve McIsaac. And I remember him telling me, you got to help my friend, Ricky Burgess, Reverend Burgess, get elected. I said, well, he's a reverend. I said, he's going to run for office. Like, I didn't understand the whole thing. And I said, and he said, but you know what? He's what we need. He really cares. He's a kind of guy that's going to speak up. He's really super smart, and he's going to help our neighborhoods. And so he asked me to help you. And I just want to say, I hear a lot of times people criticizing and making comments and doing things. And you know, I mean, I get it when you're upset and you're seeing your neighborhoods change, because I told you I watched my neighborhood change, you know, Oakland. I grew up on Fifth Avenue. So I watched that change dramatically. So I definitely get it. But I do want to say, I watch you behind the scenes. I watch you here on council, and I know that you are such an advocate for your community. And I hope that, it's my hope that you'll sit down together and really be able to work through some of these things, and they'll be able to see the passion and the force and drive that you advocate for them so strongly with. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. We certainly are thankful for all the 35 or so speakers who have come, spoke from their heart of various experiences and frustration and pain, hope and encouragement and plans, and all that's helpful. I want to say perhaps 2 or 3 things. First of all, this problem of African Americans leaving the Midwestern cities is not unique to Pittsburgh. So whatever is going on is true in Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, St. Louis, almost all of the Rust Belt. Steel cities are seeing the same, what scholars call Black flight. That is, that Black people are leaving the inner city and they're moving to the suburbs, or they're moving down south. That's first thing. Second of all, so what you're seeing, I think, is the consequence of hundreds of years of systematic racism, right? You're seeing when Black people were concentrated in communities where they weren't able to live in diverse neighborhoods, they were stuck in neighborhoods that now are, you know, underwater. And so, although there is some gentrification going on, no doubt about it, places like Lawrenceville and some places in East Liberty have seen gentrification, and that's caused some displacement. But in places like Homewood, Lincoln Leamington, Larimer, the Hill District, and parts of the North Side, depends on not the Mexican War Streets, but other parts of the North Side, that's not been the cause of displacement. They've left for better housing, or more affordable housing, or better quality of housing. They've left because of better economic opportunities, wanting to get a better, better jobs. The mills have closed. We have not replaced the middle-class jobs. They are now low-income jobs. They went for better schools, or they've left for safer neighborhoods. A place like Homewood that's 60% vacant. We could build 60% of the housing new without displacing anyone because it's so vacant. Same thing is true in most of the Black neighborhoods. And so I think lastly, we have to get on the same goal. I think simply, and I believe in, I have chaired for years the Housing Authority. I'm now still a board member. I believe in affordable housing, but if you build a neighborhood that's all poor, it will not be good for the residents. You do not want to build a neighborhood that's just all poor housing. What you really want is stable, mixed income neighborhoods that have amenities, right? You want to rebuild Homewood, but not with just all poor housing. You want mixed income housing. You also want stores and restaurants You also want dry cleaners and drugstores and gas stations and just a mixture of things. And my dream is when, and I believe possible, when every neighborhood in Pittsburgh has a mixture of housing where people can afford and it's all clean and decent, and all of the communities, you know, or you're able to walk to the store and walk to restaurants, walk to recreation centers and swimming pools. I think that's the goal. And so then we can talk together about how to do that, because, and the last thing I've learned from doing this work is it's easy to want to put us in silos. And, you know, sometimes I advocate strongly for African Americans. It may seem that I'm doing that, but I don't mean that only. It really, we must get better as a city. It's for Anthony Coghill's district, it has to do well. Bruce Cross's district has to do well. Deb Gross's district has to do well. Downtown has to do well. The city as a whole must do well. So the goal is not to favor one community over other, I think, but it's to have strategies that are interdependent of how we as a whole can grow our city. And I think we can. And in fact, I think we are. I think it's hard because we're facing these intergenerational problems that have been in effect long before any of us have been members of council. But we have been an active council. We've done these amazing things, from the Housing Opportunity Fund to, you know, funding choice neighborhoods. We're doing these amazing things, but unfortunately it's going to take 20, 30, 40, 50 years to undo the harm caused by hundreds of years of disinvestment. So I'm proud for work we're doing. And I look forward to working with all of you and all of the residents and all the activists and all the community groups and all the businesses, all of our corporate leaders, and with this mayor in the future to work together to make our city a city for all, also making it a city where Black Pittsburgh matters. With that, I'll entertain a motion to end the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, aye. I mean, those in favor, aye. Opposers, nay. There are no opposers. We are adjourned. Thank you, Cable.